This video is for all the Destiny 2 Guardians out there that want to get their hands on the legendary Luna Howl hand cannon. I'm going to be giving some hints and tips for getting to ranked Fabled, which is the last step of the quest, and for a lot of people probably the most difficult part. But I'm also going to be talking about the other quest steps, give you some tips as well on those. But before we get into all that, I'd like to take a moment to actually have a close look at exactly what the Luna Howl is capable of, so you know exactly what you're spending your time grinding for. Now, you've probably already been shot by the Luna Howl many times in Crucible. That's probably why you're here, because you know lots of people are using it and it's very effective. Okay, so what makes the Luna Howl so effective in Crucible? If we look at the base stats for this weapon, we can see that it's really built around stability. It's a precision frame weapon, and it has Zen moment and polygonal rifling perks on it, which means that the recoil is minimal, very controllable, and so you can consistently land headshots with this weapon. And that ties in perfectly with the unique perk of this weapon, the perk that really makes it special and feel almost exotic. That is the Magnificent Howl perk. Okay, so let's have a closer look at this Magnificent Howl perk, exactly how it works and how to use it effectively. Rapidly landing 2 precision shots grants a short period of bonus damage until your next kill or miss. Now that short period is about 3 or 4 seconds, which doesn't sound like a long time, but in Crucible that can seem like an eternity. And don't forget, this is a fast fire rate hand cannon. It can fire at 180 RPM, rounds per minute, so you can do a lot of damage within that time frame. Now normally this weapon would do 57 crit to the head and 39 to the body within its 28 meter range before you get significant drop off. That's typical for a hand cannon. Now this is not a super weapon, it is of its type, it is a hand cannon, it's a precision weapon, it rewards precision play. You're not going to be able to outshoot a scout rifle or a pulse rifle from range. You have to get to within that sort of 28 meters for it to be effective. But with the damage buff, it can be effective. You can actually 3-tap people from further out than that once the Magnificent Howl perk is active. Because with the perk active, you actually get a 2.3 times damage buff. That is significant. You go from 57 crit to the head to 131 crit to the head, and you go from 39 to the body to 88 to the body. So yes, when the Magnificent Howl perk is active, you can 2-tap people. Even if they're full health, full resilience, you can destroy them with this weapon. It's happened to me in Crucible, it's probably happened to you too. Fortunately, you don't have to shoot the same Guardian in the head twice to get the damage buff. If you shoot one Guardian in the head and he dips, you can then turn your attention to someone else and still get the perk to activate. Often, once you shoot a Guardian twice in the head, he will take so much damage he will dip, and then you can turn your attention to someone else within that 3 or 4 second time frame and get the 2-tap. So it does actually happen quite a lot. In fact, you can actually use that technique to your advantage to maximize the amount of damage you can do within the 3 or 4 seconds. For instance, if you come across a couple of Guardians, you catch them off guard, you can actually shoot one in the head twice to get the damage buff, and then yes, you could finish him off with a body shot, but that would then kill the perk. So what you could do instead is turn your attention to the next Guardian, 2-tap him, and then go back and finish off the first Guardian. The Luna also has the drop mag perk, which drops ammunition when you reload, but it gives you a fast reload, and that can actually keep you alive in a tight spot. Okay, so now let's get back to actually getting you the Luna. First thing you need to do is to go to Shaxx in the tower and pick up the bounty, and all the quest steps are in the competitive playlist. So if you're not used to competitive, you might struggle a bit initially. There are some game modes you may not be familiar with, survival and countdown. The first stage of the quest is to complete 10 competitive matches. That's right, you don't have to win them, all you have to do is complete them. So it's a great opportunity to familiarise yourself with the different game modes. Then you need to get 150 hand cannon kills. So grab your favourite hand cannon, maybe the Ace of Spades, that's a good choice, or perhaps a Trust hand cannon. That's a similar archetype to the Luna, so that's probably a good idea to use. You can grab that from grinding out Gambit. Now, if you're not used to using hand cannons, it can take time to get comfortable with them. You need to go for those precision headshots. And there is a thing called bloom in Destiny. All weapons can suffer from it, and hand cannons are affected quite badly. If you spam that fire trigger, it will bloom out. Think of the accuracy of the hand cannon being related to how fast you fire it. Think of a cone coming out the end of the hand cannon, and the diameter of that cone is the actual accuracy of the weapon. And the faster you fire it, the bigger that cone will become, the less accurate it will become. So pacing your shots, making sure that your shots are actually on target. Don't panic with the hand cannon. The next step is to get 200 solo kills. So you just need to equip yourself with solo weapons and a solo subclass that you're happy with. Then you need to go into Rumble. This is a bit of an odd one. You have to go into Rumble and do 3 Rumble matches. Don't worry, you don't have to win them, just complete them. That's quite an easy step. Then you need to get 100 hand cannon precision kills. Now this can take a while, so yeah, just stick with it. Just go for the headshots all the time and you'll eventually get it done. And finally, the last stage, to reach rank Fabled. Okay, so getting to ranked Fabled, well, it can be quite a grind depending on your ability. Now, we need to talk numbers. It's all about the glory points. To get to rank Fabled, you need 2,100 glory points. Now for a win, you get 34 points, but the real kicker is for a loss, you get 30 points deducted. So if you're an average player and you're winning 50% of your games, it's going to be a long grind to get the number of points you need. But fortunately, you get bonus points for win streaks. If you win your second game in a row, you get 44 points for that second game. If you win your third game in a row, you get 54. Your fourth game in a row, you get 64 points. And for a 5-game win streak, that 5th game will give you 74 points. And then if you keep winning thereafter, you keep getting 74 points. So for the 6th, the 7th, the 8th and so on win, you'll get 74 points for each game. So that will shoot you up the rankings. So that's really what you're after. You're after those win streaks. Now it can be disheartening if you have a bad evening and you can go on a losing streak and lose a couple of 100 points, and it can set you right back, and that's really when I think a lot of people probably give up. Okay, so now you know how the point system works. So let's talk about the tips I can give you for getting as many points as you can. Now, I've already mentioned about going on a losing streak. If that's happening to you, stop playing. I know the temptation is to think, oh, I've lost 100 points, I've got to keep playing, I've got to get them back, and then you can be a bit reckless and rushing in, getting killed. That's not going to help you, and you can get a bit frustrated, and that makes you even more reckless. So yeah, you can get tired and fatigued. Just stop playing, take a break. I actually encourage you, this is actually a top tip, to play earlier in the day. And when you wake up in the morning, you're fresher, you're sharper, you can concentrate for longer, your brain can deal with more information at one time. So yeah, even if you play in the evenings, maybe that's the only time you get to play, just be aware that you're not as sharp as you were in the morning. It's not ideal. So if you do get the opportunity to play in the daytime, even say at the weekends, play early as you can. I actually found Sunday afternoon was a great time to play. I'm an older gamer, and so are most of my mates, and so we tend to play late in the evening, and that's actually for me was the worst time to play, like from like 10-11 o'clock. That was the sweatiest time to play, when you had the really hardest matches and you really had to work for each win. So yeah, I advise you to try playing at different times of day and see what's best for you. Another thing I should mention is the seasons in Destiny. Your competitive ranking will be reset at the end of the season, so make sure when that is, so you know exactly how many weeks you have left to get to the glory rank. You don't want to nearly get there and then hit the season reset and lose all that work. That would be completely demoralizing. Another tip I have for you is to play with friends. If you can get other people interested, some of your other friends, if they're playing Destiny, talk to them about the Luna, see if you can get them interested. That will encourage you. They'll be telling you how many points they've got. So there's a bit of competition. You can play together to help each other. And so many times I've gone into Crucible and I've seen people rushing off on their own and getting shot. A lot of players focus too much on the red on the map. That's all they see, that's all they're looking for. They just want to get into the fight straight away. You should be just as aware, if not more aware, of the blue on your map. The blue circles your teammates. You need to know at all times where they are. If they're on your left, on your right, if they're in front of you, behind you. And if you get isolated, the first objective should be to get back in their vicinity. If you're on your own, a good team will actually hunt you down, especially if they're communicating. They'll say, oh, we've got a guy on his own over here, and they'll all hunt you down. And you might be engaging one person, and while you're doing that, their teammates are going to be flanking you. Now, you can use whatever weapons you want when you get to this stage. You don't have to use hand cannons, so use whatever weapons work for you. As long as you've played at least 3, I think it is, competitive matches, at the weekly reset, you will be given 60 bonus glory points. And that's something to bear in mind. So it actually means you only need to get to 2040 or above, and then you can just wait for the weekly reset to carry you over the finish line. One piece of advice I can give you is how you approach this whole process. Yeah, it's cool to get the Luna and it's great to run around using it, it's a great weapon, but really you should be enjoying the whole process. Like, don't get stressed out about it, have fun, enjoy yourself. The weapon is great to chase because it does focus you, it makes you have a serious look at your game, how can you play better? And that, I think, is a real benefit of getting this weapon. Sometimes when you go into a game and you realise you're up against fantastic players, you know you're going to lose. Like, don't get frustrated about it, just play the best you can, learn from the experience and see how they're playing and see how that can influence your game. And sometimes when you're solo queuing, you can end up in a game with players that aren't very good and you know you're going to lose. No matter what you do, you just have to take it on the chin, roll with the punches, because sometimes it can work in your favour. Sometimes you can end up in a game with some really good players on your team and you actually get carried. Controlling the heavy in a game can be key to whether you win or lose. You'll often find that when you spawn in, players will run straight to where the heavy is and try and lock it down for their team. It can be frustrating because certain maps, depending on where you spawn, the opposition can actually get there before you and lock it down before you can get there. You can actually try and pick it up yourself when it does spawn, or use it as bait. Like, just sit back, let the opposition try and get it and then grenade it out and shoot them. Now, when the heavy is about to spawn, it's often a good time to use your super to push the opposition off the heavy, get a few kills, generate some orbs for your team, and also pick up the heavy yourself or leave the heavy for someone else to pick up. Your team's super use can actually make a huge difference to how the game plays out. Chaining supers is what you really want to do. If you're lucky enough to be able to talk to your teammates, make sure that you're not using supers at the same time. Say, I've got my super, I'm going to use it. And once you've used your super, you can then start charging up your next super and making use of all the orbs that your teammates drop when they get super kills. If you hold on to your super for too long, trying to find the optimal time to use it to get a team wipe that can actually put your team at a disadvantage because you're not generating any orbs. Even if you get 1 or 2 kills with your super, at least you're generating orbs and you're helping to chain supers with your teammates. A good time to use your super is when you find yourself isolated from your teammates. Maybe you're cut off, the enemy's collapsing upon you. Pop your super and then you can actually flush the enemies towards your teammates, and maybe they'll then get some easy team shooting kills. Don't be afraid to use different weapons. Actually selecting the correct weapons for the different maps you play on is actually quite important. If it's a bigger, more open map, pull out a scout rifle, a Mida's a good one, or the Jade Rabbit. If it's a more medium-sized map, a pulse rifle is a good option. They're very strong at the time of making this video. If it's a smaller map, then shotguns and hand cannons are very effective. And even if the meta shifts, these weapons tend to stay within their same range of effectiveness. So using the correct weapons on the correct maps, yeah, always a good idea. Now, map rotation is definitely something to be aware of. It's to do with how the game spawns people into the map and how the spawn points move around the map as the players move around the map. The game will always try and spawn you in as far away from your position as possible. Doesn't always work. So if your teammates get some kills on one side of the map, you can kind of guess exactly where they're going to spawn on the map. It would be as far away from them as possible. So you can then predict where the people spawning in are going to be and how they're going to move across the map to get back into the action, and you can actually intercept them and catch them off guard. Some teams, really good teams that know the map really well, can actually manipulate the spawns and create a spawn split. So you can never really spawn together with your teammates, and they keep you split up. They keep you pinned into your spawn areas, and as they're killing people, they're moving back, allowing you to spawn back in that area. If the spawn flips to the other side, they've got people there locking down the other spawn. If you're getting spawn split, you're obviously up against a good team. Communication can really be key. If you're lucky enough to have some people to play with, they may not be the best players, but if you communicate well together, you can actually beat some really good teams. I know it's difficult when you're playing, you're concentrating, and sometimes people can be very quiet. That isn't a good thing. If all you're hearing on the mic is, "Oh, I got shot, how could he have killed me? I was behind a wall, there's no way he could have shot me." If that's all you're hearing, that's not good. You want to be hearing meaningful information. You want to be hearing call outs, I've got a super. And you actually want to name parts of the map as well. Or they're on the bridge, or they're on the heavy. Even if you're playing Clash, you can still use the control points. Like when you're playing Control, you know where the control points are, A, B and C. You can obviously call those out. But even when you're playing Clash, you can still say, oh, they're on A or on B. People will probably know where those points normally are, and that can actually be meaningful. But when you do make call outs, don't just say, oh, they're in front of me or they're behind me. People don't necessarily know exactly where you are, exactly where you're looking. Make call outs with regard to the group as a whole. That they're in front of us, they're on our right flank, they're on our left flank, they're behind us, they're in our spawn. Then people can actually use that information. Being a good communicator and relaying meaningful information to your teammates, that's actually a big part of being a great player. And if you give out good information, people are going to want to play with you. I want to talk about slide shotgunners. You know the sort of guys I'm talking about. They run high mobility, they slide around everywhere, jumping around everywhere, they never stop moving, and they're in your grill before you know it with a shotgun and you're dead. If you're up against a whole team of shotgunners, it can be an absolute nightmare. So make sure that you keep an eye on your abilities. You know when you've got a grenade, you know when you've got a melee charged, and you can use those abilities to keep them at bay. Try not to let them get too close to you. It's not easy to do, but backtracking sometimes is your only option. And this is where it's really important to be with your teammates so that you can actually help each other and team shoot shotgunners when they push. Now the last word is back in the game. That's a really effective weapon if you want to snipe Combine that with the last word because it's really effective at close range, and once you get good with it, you can actually destroy shotgunners before they can get you. But as you go up the ranks, you'll find that more and more people are using shotguns. They are actually very effective at the moment at the time of making this video. And sometimes, if you can't beat them, join them. Pull out a shotgun and beat them at their own game. Now you might be thinking, I don't like shotguns. I don't want to be a shotgunner. There's so many shotgunners, that's not what I want to do. But it is a good idea to try different weapons you're not familiar with. If you just play with the same weapons all the time, that can get a bit stale and you can kind of plateau. And also, you can actually lose interest in the game. It's much better to try different weapons and have more of a repertoire of weapons that you can use and mix it up from time to time. So I definitely advise you, even if you don't want to be a shotgunner, and I hope that not everybody that watches this video ends up shotgunning. There are other viable options. That you still give it a go. Look online, find out what shotguns are the most effective in PvP. Grind for them, farm for them, acquire one. Go into quick play. Learn how shotgunners think, how they navigate the map, how they quickly close the gap on people. Become the shotgunner. And even if you don't end up using the shotgun on a regular basis, you know the strengths and weaknesses of being a shotgunner, and it makes shotgunners more predictable to you, and you can better deal with them. And that goes for any weapon. Grab a fusion rifle, a weapon you're not familiar with, and learn to use it. It will make you an all-round better player. Okay, so now to my final piece of advice. This is actually the most important thing I can say to you with regard to getting your Luna or being a better Crucible player in general. You might be rolling your eyes at this point thinking I'm going to say, play regular, play as much as you can. Obviously that's good advice, but that's not what I'm saying. The most important thing is to be a team player. And you might think, nah, I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I like to go off and do my own thing. I'm a decent player. I can hold my own. I don't need teammates. Well, one of the biggest lessons in life is that no man is an island. We need other people. United we stand, divided we fall. Quite often when you spawn in to a game, you will see players and they'll just run off in all different directions to do their own thing. And this is probably going to be a loss. Now, if you're down the ranks, that isn't a problem because the opposition isn't so good and you can still actually be successful. But when you move up the ranks, what you'll find is that other teams will absolutely destroy you. If you go out on your own to lone wolf it, no matter how good you are, you can't shoot in more than one direction at once. A well-oiled team that are rotating around the map will pick you off one by one and you will be owned. It will be bad, trust me. I'm sure it's happened to you in the past where you've been in a game and you don't know where to look, you're getting shot from all directions, wherever you go you just seem to run into more trouble and it's just a nightmare. That is because you are playing against a proper team, well coordinated team of players. To be a great player, you need to be a great team player. And top tier players, they are naturally team players. They will just slot in, they just know how to play with other people and how to be effective with other people. Even if you go off on your own and you're effective on your own, maybe you can hold your own against a couple of guardians, maybe even 3 guardians. You're good at using cover, you're good at surviving, using your grenades to keep them at bay. A team will look at you and think, okay, he's doing okay, but he'd do so much better if he was working with the rest of us. And they won't actually want to play with you. They would rather have a great player with all those skills you have, but a player that's willing to be part of the team. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you gel? How do you be part of a team? Even if you're solo queuing, you run into some guys and they're rotating around the map, you can see they're moving as a unit. How do you become part of that? Well, when you're with the group, pay attention to where you are. run with the group, keep up with them, look at those blue dots. If you're in the middle of the group, you're more of a spearhead, so you'll be taking aggro. If you're on the left flank, once you actually meet some opposition, you see the bullets flying, that's when you actually fan out as a group. If you're on the right flank, you fan out to the right, on the left to the left. If you're in the middle, maybe there is no opportunities for you actually to get a different angle. Maybe you just team shoot, you're more sort of taking the aggro, letting the other guys do the flanking, and this all happens simultaneously. So the opposition get caught off guard, they're shooting the spearhead guys, the guys flanking then get easy kills, and you just collapse on opposition simultaneously. That's top tier Crucible, that's what you're aiming for. Okay, thank you for getting this far. I know it's been a long video, but I really wanted to give you as much information as I could to help you to get a Luna for yourselves. If you play on a regular basis, you play smart, stick with it, it will happen. You'll get the points you need and you'll get your Luna. And hopefully you'll come out of it a much better player. And then you can brag to your mates that you got your Luna and you did it yourself, you didn't get carried. Because it's a real challenge, it feels like a real event when you get it. And yes, you can brag to your mates, and that's probably what it's all about really. It will be an event that you'll remember, part of your personal destiny journey, something that you can talk to your mates about in the future. Remember when we got our Lunas, how cool that was. So I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, as always, please give me a thumbs up, that really helps me out. I try and do at least one video a month that's game related, so if you're interested in seeing more of my videos, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Feel free to leave any comments. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with the things that I've said. Maybe you've got some things to add that could really help other people. That would really be appreciated. I do try and reply to all comments if I can. So thanks again, and see you in the next video. Goodbye. This video is dedicated to the memory of Martin Crisp. He produced all the background music in this video. He was my best friend. He is sorely missed. May he rest in peace.